Associated Press, this is Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
This is the Associated Press. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear, Marcia.
Well, greetings, Commander Kelly from the Kennedy Space Center. Good to see your face. Overnight, your brother put out an encouraging tweet. He said yesterday was a huge day for Congresswoman Giffords and that she had made lots of progress. Could you provide any details, please?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to provide any details above what he put out in the tweet. I did talk to him today, and he said she is improving, and she's improving every day, so that's very encouraging.
How is Mark holding up, and has he decided yet whether to fly aboard Endeavour or not?
Well, he's holding up very well. I think he's doing about as best as anyone could in this situation. He's concentrating on Gabby's care, but he's also been going back to work. And as far as him making a decision, I think we'll hear something about that soon. I know he needs to certainly consult with NASA management on that, but I'm encouraged we'll hear something about that fairly soon.
Well, I can only imagine how hard a decision this is for him. I'm wondering, does he tend to lean one way or another? Is this something he's been struggling with personally, which way to choose?
He's a pretty logical guy and, very thoughtful, and will certainly weigh all the different considerations when making this decision. And, any more than that, I wouldn't really want to elaborate. And, because he has every opportunity to let people know how he's feeling and which way he's leaning, and he hasn't done that thus far.
One more quick question along these lines. Has he asked for your advice in the matter? You probably know him better than anyone.
We do talk about it, and we have talked about the different, considerations. So, I'm confident he's going to make a good decision, and whatever decision he chooses, I'll support him.
How has everything that's happened in the past month affected your own space mission? And I'm wondering if you want to get back to Earth more urgently than you might have if the shooting had never occurred.
That's a tough question. Certainly I would want to be on Earth and there to support my brother and, my children, other family and friends through this. But at the same time, I recognize that I have a responsibility here, and, that's kind of the cards I was dealt. So I never really felt like I wanted or needed to get back to Earth as soon as possible because it wasn't a possibility. So it's something I really didn't consider. As far as how my life has changed here, I certainly spend more time on the phone now than I did prior to the incident. Whereas I used to spend time looking out the window and taking pictures on Earth and the little spare time that we do have. Now, much of my spare time is taken up with phone calls and email, and so it has changed somewhat.
Have you managed to compartmentalize your life as astronauts are trained and to do, and even maybe it's an innate ability to just really focus on the job at hand? Has that been especially difficult for you, more so than you might have imagined, or no?
No, it really hasn't. I think, from the background I came, military pilots, and actually, people from other backgrounds are the same way. We're very good at compartmentalizing, like you said, and it's a word the military uses. In other words, focusing on what your responsibility, what your task is in the immediate time, so to speak, and trying to separate that from larger, more kind of global things that are happening around you. So really to kind of focus in on what your responsibilities are. And my brother certainly is very good at that. So, if he does choose and NASA management chooses for him to, fly this mission, allow him to fly this mission, I am absolutely 100% confident that he will have no problem fulfilling his responsibilities the same way as if this incident would have never occurred.
Well, Commander, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Godspeed to you and your entire crew.
Thank you very much, Marcia.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the Associated Press portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from the New York Times.
Station, this is New York Times. How do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, John.
Terrific. Greetings, Commander. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. The Northeast misses you. How hard, you were talking about calling the Earth, how hard is it for an astronaut to call the Earth? Just for my readers who have a general interest, you don't just pick up a phone. So what goes into that?
Well, it's a lot like making a phone call on, a internet site like Skype, for instance. It is a voice over IP phone. It uses a off-the-shelf software to do it. It's on the computer, of course. So it's no harder than that. The other one of the requirements we have is we need to have a KU antenna signal with the ground, which we don't have all the time. So there's probably 25% of the time, maybe a little bit less at certain times, we don't have the capability to make a call. So you're always looking, when you're thinking about calling, whether you have KU availability, and then how much time you have left. So a lot of times, if you're on the phone call with somebody, you got to cut it short. Maybe shorter than you might otherwise want to. So it's not hard.
In the past, when you were on orbit and something like the family crisis you've had happen, you wouldn't have this kind of contact. Has the amount of contact you've had helped, hurt? How has it been for you?
I think it's absolutely great. I mean, not only have I had the capability to use the phone, but we have email. That is synced with a ground email account several times a day. But we also have an internet connection that is real time. It's kind of like dial-up, so it's pretty slow. But it does allow you to, for instance, access your, ground-based email. So you can potentially send email real time. You can access internet sites real time for news, and we also have the ability to, the ground to send up TV news. So after this happened, I was watching CNN a lot in my spare time, following what went on. I think it's great, to be able to keep in touch. Maybe other people would feel differently, but I think it's, I prefer to have that connectivity.
Now, you talked a little bit about compartmentalization. How has that worked for you, and how has it worked for your brother in working through some of the decisions that he's got to make?
Well, like I was saying earlier, it's it's kind of our training, I think. Being from the military and test pilots and flying high-performance airplanes. When you're in a high-performance airplane, you really have to, despite what might be happening in your personal life or things with your job or things on the ground, you really have to focus on what you're doing right now, whether that's, flying a low-level, at low altitude, dropping bombs, flying, air combat, or even shooting an instrument approach. It's a life-critical kind of thing. So those kind of things train you to separate things that are going on in your personal life from things like, operating a spacecraft, which I think is, an important background, an important type of training to have in this kind of business.
Can you describe the day that you got the call from Peggy Whitson, what you were doing and how it hit you?
I can't. It was on the weekend, so I wasn't that busy. Although we do, do some work, mostly housekeeping activities on the weekend. I can't recall specifically what I was doing, but the the Capcom called up on the space to ground and said, we're going to privatize space to ground. Peggy Whitson wants to talk to you, and not having a heads up that anything was going on or there was a possibility for her to want to talk to me directly. I think this was the first time she did that. I knew whatever it wasn't good. And, she told me Gabby had been shot. And then it was a pretty quick conversation. And I told her that, I'd like as much information as the news is putting out, even if it's unconfirmed. It's interesting. I actually had CNN at the time. We were watching CNN. I have CNN on the weekends only because mostly to watch football on Sundays. They need to send something up so the configuration is correct. So typically they'll send the news up, and we had CNN on. And the ground, most likely, and I need to ask this, they probably cut it off when they saw what was going on until Peggy got the chance to call me. But then they turned it back on, and I was able to follow along on the news and with updates from Houston.
And are you hearing from other members of your community, people reaching out to you? I mean, the closest thing to anything like this is Stantowne. Have you heard from folks about what Scott? I mean, what Mark is going through, what you're going through?
Actually, they actually called Dan in on the day this happened, so he was, on console as one of the Capcoms when Gabby was shot. I think they brought him in just for this, and maybe based on what had happened to him when he was on orbit with his mother being unfortunately killed in a car accident. So, so I have been able to, talk to Dan and other people that have had tragedies. I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me, and it's really been, very, heartwarming, I guess you could say, that, people from around the world, sending messages of support, not only to Gabby and my brother, but also to, to a lesser extent, but also to me.
And you're talking with your brother pretty often. Hate to ask again, but where do you think this is going to play out? Do you have any sense on his decision, that is?
Oh, I absolutely have a sense, but when Mark's ready to share that with the public, and when NASA's ready for, a press release to go out, that's, then it'll be time. And I don't, I think it'd be overstepping my bounds to be, speculating, or not speculating, but publicly stating how I think he's going to, and what NASA's decision is going to be. I actually don't know what NASA's decision is going to be. That's between, our internal management. But I have talked to my brother, and I'm pretty sure I know which way he's leaning.
Terrific. Hey, thanks so much for talking with me today.
My pleasure, John.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you very much.